Dmitry Orlov is set to be the Sharks' top defenseman going into the season. What are they getting?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at The Reef, personal blog about the San Jose Sharks, also co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everyday, all you have to do, just follow wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we got a fun one. We're going to be digging into Dmitry Orlov's game as we start to kind of get ready for the season here. Orlov, who's expected to be the Sharks' number one defenseman? Question mark. So we're going to kind of get to know his game. We're going to hear from Zach Martin of Locked On Hurricanes to kind of find out about his time in Carolina. And then we're going to talk about expectations for Orlov as we head into this season. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season's around the corner, so visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. All right, Dmitry Orlov, we talked about some of this offseason, but now as we kind of, again, start to gear up for the season, we want to look at some of these guys who are going to be critical pieces for the Sharks. And we know the Sharks, right? They have revamped this entire blue line with some of the additions that they made, including giving Dmitry Orlov a big 2-year contract at $6.5 million. They claimed Nick Leddy. They brought in John Klingberg. Muko Dulan's supposed to be a new, a full-time NHL player now, and that doesn't even include if Sam Dickinson or Jack Thompson can push for the team, or Luca Cagnoni. But Orlov does feel like he's going to be one of the big pieces for the San Jose Sharks on the blue line. So let's kind of get to know Orlov a little bit and look at what he's done throughout his career, and especially kind of last season when he was playing with the Carolina Hurricanes. So Dmitry Orlov is 34, 5'11", 214 pounds. Like I said, signed a 2-year deal this offseason for $6.5 million. That is the largest AAV contract that Mike Grier has given out at $6.5 million. So congrats to Orlov. Last season he played 76 games, has 6 goals, 22 assists with 117 shots on goal, playing 20 minutes on the dot average ice time. So perfect. I'm not a big math guy, but I can figure that one out. He's playing a 1/3 of a game every night. So when he was on the ice, Corsi 4. So when the Hurricanes, who again, these numbers are always a little inflated because of the style that they play, right? Where they just want to shoot constantly. Orlov, though, when he was on the ice, the Hurricanes took nearly 60% of the shot attempts. When he's on the ice, they had 50.44% of the goals. Looking at his evolving hockey card, Orlov playing kind of even strength. He was playing kind of first pairing minutes, but definitely not kind of a first pairing guy, especially look at how the Hurricanes defense is structured with some guy named Jacob Slavin. Did solid. Goals above replacement was solid. Defensively was really good at kind of like the expected goals above replacement were very, very good there. Shorthanded, not maybe the greatest numbers there. He was a 40 percentile player, playing with 43 percentile offensively, 36 percentile defensively, kind of for his minutes. Looking at his advanced hockey stat card over the past 3 years, 76 percentile projected WAR players, so that's wins above replacements, with pretty even between his offense and his defense there. PK was not very good, but good at goals, plays solid competition, but usually has pretty decent teammates as well, and maybe shoots a fair amount, but doesn't kind of get the scoring that you'd maybe kind of expect for a guy as often as he shot. So looking at his usage chart, he was a player who got solid offensive deployment, but also faced tough competition as you would expect, and did pretty well with it. Kind of considers an average top 4 two-way defenseman per Dauber Hockey. So, and then if you look at his all 3 zones cards, this kind of really tracks his like what he does with the puck when he has it. So like his zone entries, he's very good at carrying the puck from into the offensive zone. And when he does do it, usually good things tend to happen for him. Pretty good defensively when it came to kind of puck retrievals and getting the puck out of his own zone, and also solid job of kind of defending on these zone entries as well. So pretty kind of solid if you're not watching on YouTube, but if you're pretty solid overall though for his all three zones cards. So before playing with the Hurricanes, Orlov also played half a season with the Bruins back in the 22-23 season, and then he played for the Capitals from 2011 all the way up to the 2022-23 season. And the kind of the thing you have to kind of keep in mind with Orlov is like, he's never really had to be the guy, right? Because you look back at those, Capital seasons, right? They had some guy named John Carlson, who's the guy, right, on that team. And, even with his time with short amount of time with Boston, right, you had some other guys who were kind of more like, like Charlie McAvoy, et cetera, that guys who were kind of always the first defenseman, even in Carolina, right? Jacob Slavin, the first top pairing defenseman. So he's never really had to be the guy throughout his career, but he has played big time minutes before. Carolina, he definitely saw his minutes kind of decreased a little bit. And again, that's probably, as we'll talk with our friend Zach here in a little bit, it was because of just the other defensemen that they had on the roster, right? And Orlov never really had to kind of carry the load. Last season, you saw, jump up in ice time, but, before his time in Carolina, like he was putting up 22-minute a night seasons pretty regularly, from like 17, 18 on, where he was, for most parts, at least 20 minutes a night, a lot of times, touching 22, sometimes 23 minutes a night type of player. But again, never had to be the guy. So I do think that's going to be one of the big things that we're going to have to kind of discuss and talk about with Orlov is his usage and how the Sharks use him, because he's never had to be the guy. And right now the Sharks don't really have a true top pairing defenseman on their roster, right? And over the past couple of years, it has been very makeshift, especially since the Erik Karlsson trade, where they've been having to try to cobble together guys. And Mario Ferraro's done his best, and Jake Wallman played very well in that role for half a season before he got traded. And now it's going to be, I think, the way the Sharks attacked it this offseason with some of the pieces that they added, where it's going to be kind of top guy by committee. But I think we kind of know what Orlov's job is going to be, right? And, you brought in John Klingberg, who's probably going to be running the power play, or I would assume is going to be running the power play and going to be helping to kind of push offense. And I would try to partner him with one of your more defensive sounding defensively sound players. And Orlov, I think, is going to be having to kind of take on a load of a lot of tough minutes for the Sharks, because again, right, you have Mario Ferraro, who's been in that role for a while, and we've seen how that's kind of worked out. And maybe the hope now with Ferraro not having to play as many tough minutes, we might get a better Ferraro. And you're hoping now that Orlov can kind of be that guy, right? And at least help to kind of very Samwise Gamgee share the load here with the Sharks, and with the defense as you wait for your Sam Dickinsons or whomever else to kind of hit the scene and kind of and get ready to kind of take that torch of being the top pairing defenseman. So, but I do think with Orlov, like, there is going to be some risk or whatever. I don't know, risk, but we're going to have to see Orlov play a lot more this year than I think he's played in the past couple seasons. So, how did his time in Carolina go? What do we kind of learn from that? We're going to talk to our friend Zach Martin here in a minute and kind of get the download on what Orlov did in Carolina. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's great if you want to kind of build same-game parlays. I know week one, everyone goes crazy trying to put together those massive parlays there because everybody's playing in week one, and it's been a while. You got to jump back in. If you're going to jump in, jump into the deep end. But it does make every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keep an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now and visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, before we get to Zach, do have a favor to ask you guys. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast like this one. Or maybe I'm your least favorite. Cool. Even better. So this is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. And now we bring in Zach Martin from Locked On Hurricanes to give us some deep dive here on Orlov and his time in Carolina. Zach, how's it going, buddy?
No, going good, JD. Thanks for the invite. Been a fan of your work for the last, being here for over a year now, and just enjoying what you've been doing over at Locked On Sharks. Yeah, always ready to talk hockey, man. But how are you doing tonight?
Your check one is in the mail. Two, not too bad. So, looking forward to a what should be a more fruitful, we'll say, season, and hopefully we can't three-peat. I know Hurricane or Panthers fans, they want to three-peat. We are trying to not three-peat this year as the worst team in the NHL.
Please.
So that's right. The hope this year. So sure. I did want to bring you on because Orlov, is going to probably be the guy for the Sharks this year, right? And I kind of want to get your thoughts on his time in Carolina, where he played big minutes, but there was always that guy, Jacob Slavin, who I hear is pretty good at hockey. So what's kind of your overall thought of Orlov and his game? What Sharks fans should kind of expect when he hits the ice?
Yeah, I think when you talk about Dmitry Orlov, he's definitely got a hard shot for sure. Like his slap shot's absolutely unreal. The thing with Carolina was that he was coming into his 2-year deal. His first year, he was third line D pair because you're looking at the pair that they had at the time for a second. It was Brady Shea and Brett Pesce, who were, both those guys were there for a good bit of time before Orlov came in. So it was kind of third pair. Last season goes up to second pair, play with Jalen Chatfield a good bit of it and stuff like that. I guess he still felt like he should have been top pairing and stuff like that. But like you said, it's hard when you get the best defenseman in the NHL and Jacob Slavin there. It's pretty tough to be in that spot. So it'd be interesting to see how he is going to be the guy because he wanted to be that. Now he has the opportunity with the Sharks. But overall, I mean, good offensive game to himself. It'll be interesting to see if they throw him on the power play with San Jose. He wasn't really on the power play a whole lot with the Carolina Hurricanes, not even the PK as well. Does have some okay defensive side to his game. Heavy hitter, great hip checks and stuff like that. It's just, is he going to be able to take the workload and stuff like that? Because he still got his time with Carolina, but it wasn't to where I guess he was hoping. So I'm curious to see if we're going to be seeing a Washington Capitals, Boston Bruins version of him, or see what he's going to be like this upcoming season for the Sharks.
Yeah, I mean, the Sharks, but to the power play, I think John Klingberg is going to be the guy on the power play. I think that's why they brought him in. I know Klingberg does have his questions with his health and with his defensive game, but we know the man can run a power play, and he will. I think that's going to be his job. Maybe Orlov gets the second unit, but they might also kind of see how it pans out with some of their young guys and who makes the roster there. But with you mentioned his defensive game, right? You look at like the analytics say he's a pretty strong defender. He's a pretty good two-way defender, but it didn't sound from you. It doesn't sound like kind of watching him night in, night out. Like again, Jacob Slavin's like in a tier among themselves, but like, can he be a solid defender? Or like, what are you kind of worried about with Orlov in his game?
I think for him, it's the initial quick step, and I think that's what kind of exposed him for the most part in the playoffs. Like, yeah, he's got a defensive side of the game, but if he's
Yep.
not like almost somewhat back already, then it's just hard for him to catch up. And that's the kind of same thing that happened to Brent Burns throughout last season as well. Of course, he had a surgery and stuff like that. But for Orlov, he's just not the fastest guy out there. He doesn't have the fleet of foot to get back really quick. So I think it just comes down to how the Sharks play the defense and kind of have him set up to be like, yeah, you have a great offensive side, but if we have to play you a little bit back on defense, can you do that? But I think that's been one of those things where it's like, are they going to put him in a good spot to do that? And defensively, he's fine, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just, you saw how he just got exposed a lot in the playoffs. And of course, when you're playing the Florida Panthers, he pretty much
was my
just
next
exposed
question.
everyone. Yeah.
Is it was it? Yes, I mean he's getting a little bit older, right, and probably losing that first step there. But is it a little bit of that, or is it also again you played the Panthers, who basically punked everybody and makes everybody look bad? Is it a little bit of that? And if you're not playing the Panthers for 7 games, like you probably have at least a better feeling about Orlov.
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of both. I think the fact that he is getting older, and that's why you look at the defense for the Hurricanes, you're looking at guys who are younger, faster, more offensive upside with Nikishin and Miller. And I think, when you're playing the Panthers, they were just pantsing everyone in the playoffs, the last couple seasons. So it's just one of those things where it'll be interesting to see how Orlov does. And of course, now it's in a different environment with the Sharks, and of course, a whole different division to deal with too. So I'm just curious to see how he's going to do over there when you're not really having to worry about a lot of the Eastern Conference. So I think he might have a little bit of a jump back in his game. It's just I'm curious to see what the defensive style of the Sharks are going to do to kind of bring that back in him of being that defensive guy, but still also have that hard slapper, someone who can drive an offense a little bit from the blue line.
Yeah, he's one of the big questions this year, but I do feel a lot better about having Orlov, especially kind of digging into some of his numbers than compared to some of the other options that they ran out there last year. So, and the fleet of foot thing, I am a little worried about that, especially as but hopefully the Sharks can find a good pairing for him with maybe a younger player who can be a little bit quicker, kind of getting back and a little bit more mobile, and not let Orlov kind of be out there on an island, so to say, with him. But I know again, like the Hurricanes, you guys have gone through a lot here and stuff, but a great drafting team. Give us some hope. It's gonna get better, right, Sharks fans? Right? Please.
Yes, it will definitely get better. It's just, luckily for the Hurricanes, amateur scouting staff and Darren Yorkley, in the way you're just finding guys all up and down, the drafts and stuff like that. And it's just, the Hurricanes didn't see the playoffs for 10 years from 2009 to 2019. So even the Hurricanes had their dark days of just mediocre drafting, poor, prospect development and stuff like that, not getting the proper rosters. So it definitely does take a bit. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just you're hoping it's not a tunnel that looks like the Buffalo Sabres, where it's just hello darkness, my old friend, the entire time, and you're just never out of it. So hopefully it's not as bad, because I know when you look at the Sharks and when they were constantly making the playoffs, making constant deep playoff runs, cup final appearance, unfortunately was against the Penguins, but it's always fun when you get a Bay Area team like the Sharks kind of putting, a little bit of a, hey, Southern California is getting a lot of shine, but don't forget about us here in NorCal. So
don't forget, we're coming.
Yeah.
We're coming. So.
Yeah. Well, I graduated high school from, outside of Sacramento. So I definitely, feel it for some Sharks fans. I had a lot of buddies who are big fans of those guys. So hopefully get to see some hockey back there in the Bay Area for sure for the Sharks.
Yeah. It's coming, guys. It's coming, I promise. Zach, thank you so much for your time. Where can the people find you if you're looking for a fun East Coast team to jump bandwagon this year? Hurricanes feel like a good opportunity. Where can the people find you, buddy?
Yeah, of course. And first, JD, thanks for the invite, man. Like I said, always like your stuff. Always, happy to talk to you. And finally, glad we get to do this for the first time.
Yes.
But yeah, if you're, I'm a big proponent of it. Hey, if you want an East Coast or Eastern Conference and a Western Conference team, totally fine. That is totally legal to do. If you're looking for the Hurricanes, hey, you can check me out at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. You can find us on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, but I'm very much active on the X/Twitter. going to a lot of games being credentialed is a very busy time. That's for sure.
For sure. Thanks so much, Zach. We'll talk again soon, buddy.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
All right, before we finish up, we kind of talk about some expectations for Orlov and this season. Just need to take a quick break. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's their 401ks, properties, or investments. And we don't have the full picture. You can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface, all on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, and if you're putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet, because spreadsheets are for nerds. So great thing about it too is that maybe you and your partner have separate accounts, but you have some shared goals, whether it's trying to buy a house, trying to buy a car, or just saving up for your next adventure. They make it easy to, again, track your own spending, but also work towards those goals together. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. I'm also super excited to tell you about a pair of jeans I have been living in, DUER. They have completely changed my favorite, how I view jeans in general. I've been using their performance denim straight fit, and honestly, again, they changed the game for me. Timing right now couldn't be better. DUER's opening up a brand new store in Hayes Valley on August 29th. And let me tell you why it's worth making the trip. I've been wearing them to work. They look great. They feel great. They have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, so you get that perfect fit without being restricted. DUER combines classic jeans wear style with the comfort and performance of athletic wear without sacrificing style. And again, DUER is going to be opening a brand new store on Hayes Valley on August 29th. So head on over to 567 Hay Street and mention my code LOCKEDONSF in store for 15% off your first order, or go to shopduer.com/LockedOnSF. That's DUER for 15% off online. Trust me, once you try them, you'll never want to wear anything else. All right. Expectations for Dmitry Orlov this year. So, right, you hear from our friend Zach about issues with the foot speed, right? And that's going to happen here, right? Now, I do think the Sharks do have guys to mitigate that with some of their foot speed, and some of their younger defensemen who might be a perfect pairing type of players for them. So I would be hesitant to put like Klingberg and Orlov together again, especially with a little bit older type players. I do wonder if they try again Mukmadulin, who maybe a little bit slower, especially kind of with the turning around, but does have plenty of speed, and I think can kind of help mitigate those issues. And especially if you want a guy like Orlov to be a little bit more offensive leaning, and we saw Mukmadulin play very well defensively last year, that might be the way to go. And we've seen Mukmadulin play on his offhand. Like I'm not worried about that when it comes to kind of matching up partners, because again, Sharks do not have a ton of, it's a little bit rough there with the left, right thing. So, but I do expect Orlov to kind of be the guy for the Sharks this year and kind of take on the same type of role we saw from Jake Wallman last year. And I think that's a pretty comparable app. Wallman and Orlov did a lot, like the overlap there between a lot of the stuff that those guys did. It's pretty comparable, right? And we saw Wallman having, like even in his time in Detroit, carry the puck a lot, did a lot of was very excellent at creating, kind of gathering the puck and getting the puck out of the offensive zone or out of the defensive zone and starting that transition, which was an area the Sharks really struggled in 23-24. When Wallman was in the ice, you saw that improve a lot. Also, Macklin Celebrini helps a lot too in that category. But I do think a Jake Wallman like performance out of Dmitry Orlov this first season is kind of what I'm expecting. Both of them, we know, heavy shots, right? Like insanely heavy shots. And Wallman got to use that a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Sharks kind of tried to, again, recreate that with Jake Wallman. And I know what you're saying, well, why didn't you just keep Jake Wallman? Well, I mean, you got a first round pick for him, and there's no guarantee. Yes, Wallman still has another year left on his contract. And, you know, who knows, right? Wallman did have it did seem like Wallman had some cracks in the foundation before he was leaving. And wasn't really playing his best hockey, and I don't know if him and the coaching staff got along as well either, but conversation for a different day. Orlov, though, I think is, after listening to Zach, has been kind of looking for this opportunity to kind of be the guy, right? Never been the guy on the team, and he is, I think, going to get that opportunity this year because, again, right, you look around this blue line, Mario Ferraro, okay, we've been there for a while. I think we're all collectively we're ready for someone else to kind of take the mantle. Timothy Liljegren, like, okay. John Klingberg, if John Klingberg can stay healthy, that's a big if. Muka Madulin, like, I'd love for Muka Madulin to be the guy. But again, like, this is gonna be his first full season in the NHL. I think it's just kind of Orlov by Nick Leddy. Sorry, I forgot about Nick Leddy. Maybe Leddy, but I think Leddy's gonna be coming off coming off an injury here, and didn't really play his best hockey last year. So I kind of think it's gonna be Orlov by default as the guy. And I think that's why, again, I mean, you see the actions of Mike Grier with what he paid him, right? He's the highest paid defenseman on the team, and it's $6.5 million. The next closest guy is John Klingberg at at 4, and then you have Liljegren and Ferraro both at 3.25. Pretty clear, I think. It's not hard. We know who's kind of expected the most out of these guys here because of what Grier has paid these guys, and Grier's given the contract to Ferraro. He gave the contract to Klingberg. He gave the contract to Muka Madulin. I know he traded for Liljegren, and he gave the contract to Orlov. So we know what Grier thinks of these guys. So, but I kind of, like I said, I kind of expect him to have that Wallman type impact, right? Maybe not the highs of Wallman, but I kind of expect it to be a little bit more even keeled, if that makes sense. Because I think Wallman was a little bit more up and down, and the hope is Orlov just gives you a little bit more of a steady presence out there when he's out there. And I am the couple things I am a little bit worried about though this season with him is the foot speed, but I think you can kind of help mitigate that a little bit by who you partner him up with. And to the PK, like those PK numbers, like the analytics on the PK, not super great. And again, Ferraro, your top PKers are probably going to be Ferraro, Liljegren, Muka Madulin, and Orlov in some sort of combination. Because you're probably not throwing John Klingberg out there, and whoever your sixth defenseman is, if it's Darnay's or if it's Dickinson or if it's Jack Thompson, probably none of those guys you're like, yeah, let's throw those guys out on the PK right now, especially Dickinson at 19. That's a lot right now. So I am a little worried about Orlov on the PK, but I mean, I think he will be an improvement on Cody CC, etc., because I do think he's a little bit more of a heady player than CC, and we saw a lot of those moments with Cody CC, right, where he kind of would get stuck between two guys. So hopefully he can help improve the penalty kill here, because that has been a kind of an issue with the Sharks over the past couple seasons, and now that we're hopefully starting to build and start to get some continuity, hopefully, with some of these guys who play on the PK, we can start to see that PK start to rise up here a little bit. But I like I said, I think Orlov is going to be the guy for the Sharks right now, probably for the next couple seasons here. His time in San Jose, like he's not going anywhere this season, right? He signed a $6.5 million deal with no trade clause this year. Then it opens up a little bit next year. I think they're going to kind of see how it goes and go from there. But yeah, I do think, though, like I've said before, with all these additions and Orlov included, yes, they threw a bunch of stuff at it. Hopefully some of it sticks here. And I do think some of the defense should be improved compared to what we see last year. And I think Orlov's play is going to have a lot to say with that. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back probably tomorrow, to be honest, where I think we're going to kind of run around the Pacific Division, look at how everyone kind of some of the big moves that they made, and just kind of check in on the neighbors in the Pacific and just, again, see what everyone else is up to in the neighborhood. So yeah, make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Also, this weekend, college football is back. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big Ten leads the conversation along two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts, a college football preview only Locked On can do. So catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And again, follow the show. If you haven't subscribed yet, the goal 5K by the beginning, opening night. That's the goal. If you haven't followed along on YouTube, now's the perfect time. So make sure you're subscribed over there. If not, you can listen wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, also on TikTok. Yes, Hans Moleman, Cowabunga dudes. We're doing it on TikTok, so make sure you guys follow along over there. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at my fry hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.